Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching or listening to us from. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Talent Plug podcast, a space where we pretty much unravel stories behind extraordinary talent from every corner of the marketplace. I'm your host, Francis Mulumba. In this episode, we are excited to have a very interesting guest. She is a friend of mine who I have drawn so much knowledge from in the HR space. Her name is Tiwonge. Let me say the full name. I wanted to leave out the middle name, but I have to say it in full. Her name is Tiwonge Mbale Zyambo. Tiwonge, welcome to the Talent Plug podcast.
Thank you so much, Francis, for having me. And like you said, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those joining in. Thank you. Absolutely.
So I will start by probably just giving a short introduction of who Tiwonge is, because I know there are a lot of people in the HR circles who know you very well, but just for the benefit of a few of our listeners and viewers who may not know who you are. You know, Tiwonge is a human resource and customer service consultant. She's an academician, she's a researcher, and she has been a member of the Zambian Institute of Human Resource Management for a very long time. She's actually a fellow of the Institute, and she's also a full member of CICM and also the Institute of Directors in Zambia. She is passionate about mentorship, development. This is both at the corporate level, entrepreneurial level, as well as community level. So I think that kind of encompasses what you do. Let me know if I've left out anything.
Nothing, but I'm a fellow of CICM also.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that.
Thank you.
So obviously, Tiwonge, I thought of having this discussion with you because I do realize, you know, the wealth of knowledge that you have in different spaces. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot that we can benefit from. So both in the customer service space, in the human resource space, I think there's just so much that you're keeping to yourself. And we want to be greedy. We want to be greedy so that we, you know, draw that knowledge from you and just, you know, share it out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so very first thing I'd like for us to speak into is just to tell us who Tiwonge is, and, you know, that kind of introduction that is going to have you speak into what you have done throughout the course of your career, mm-hmm. the journeys that you have actually traveled to get to this space where you are right now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Francis, and thank you for the introduction. Like said, that I am, of course, a fellow of the Zambian Institute of Human Resource, fellow of Chartered Institute of Customer Management, and a full member of Institute of Directors. And so you might be wondering, where is all this coming from?
Yes.
So my journey spans over almost half my life. My father believed that when a child, of course, gets an NRC, which is the National Registration Card,
yes.
you're actually ready for work. Mm-hmm. And that was also for you to be, to undergo some form of internship and apprenticeship. And I think it is from there, and I'm sure even as we've been interacting, I'm very big on mentorship.
Absolutely.
I'm very big on coaching because of that background. So when I got my NRC, the very following Monday, I reported for work.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, and we were dotted in different spaces. I'd written my grade 9 exam,
right? And
Dad thought I should go through some form of just exposure.
What was your first role?
I was working at a hotel, and okay. I used to be the one that cuts the onions, cuts the tomatoes,
nice.
Mixes the flour, right. And the cakes. Yes. So pretty much that was my role.
Interesting.
Yeah, but as I went to university, I transitioned. Mm. I moved from the kitchen. When I was in university, I started working. My dad was my boss. Okay. I started working in front office, and that's where I got my first exposure to customer service. So I was working at the reception. I was taught by a very great man, may he so rest in peace. That was Charles Banda. And he taught me everything customer service, nice. From handling irate customers, sharing the smile, being good to customers, and the like. And as I grew through my university, I also decided to transition again to underwriting. So I had an opportunity to be attached at Zambia State Insurance Corporation, where I worked as an underwriter. There also different, my first day, I was given like a whole room to organize requisitions and box, in the box files. Then it was, it was manual. Yeah, so by the time I was in third year, I also got to go and work in the front desk underwriting. So I was attending to customers there. I worked with a great team and Zisk Life, and they taught me everything I know today about insurance.
Right.
Yeah, so by the time, I think towards my fourth year, I had an opportunity now to go into a space. I entered I don't know if you remember, My Own Boss. I did season 2.
Yes.
I was part of that program.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I was part of that program, and of course, eventually, I graduated and had an opportunity to get a full-time job where I worked in customer service, front-facing, and I was attending to customers. I had to find my niche actually because of that background I had to apply myself. So the added advantage I had over the new graduates was that I had an opportunity to work. I was exposed to the world of work, to a working environment as a young person, how to conduct myself and the like. So it made it a bit easier. I worked in customer service for 10 years in a corporate space, and I transitioned afterwards into HR, but as I was doing that,
sorry, Tiwonge, to cut you short. So within the customer service space, did you have multiple roles, different roles? Did you transition from one role to another?
Oh yes, I did.
How was your experience in customer service?
Wow, so I was a graduate. First I was just customer service officer, then I moved to graduate customer service officer. Literally, I transitioned from one grade. I'm one of those that moved like from one grade to the next and never skipped a grade in terms of positions. So I worked in the walk-in customer service center for 7 years. Then the remaining 3 years, I transitioned to a national call center. I worked in the call center as a quality assurance officer. And I vividly remember even as I was applying for that job, because remember, as I was working in customer service, I did at some points act as center manager. And that gave me also an opportunity to lead. I was given an opportunity to lead. I was given an opportunity to teach. Because I'm coming from an adult education background, so I loved to teach. So every time someone would come, they'll say, "Baliaba a teacher," meaning that is the teacher. She'll teach you. So I'll do a step-to-step. I developed material even when I was there on how people can easily use the system. So the role of quality assurance involved more of coaching, planning for trainings. It was a new role in the organization. No one had held it. So it meant reading a lot, finding out how to do the job. I had to subscribe to call center. There's a worldwide call center hub that gives you information on how to, what are the market trends, how do you manage a call center and the like. So we did a lot of reading with my team, and we were the 4 of us with the first crop. And I remember one of my team members, Daniel, would always say, "We've not come here to maintain the status quo, but to challenge it." So meaning you are looking also at fellow employees and how to bring them up to speed on how to do the job, and also to support them. So basically, those are the 2 main, so that was the front and the back, attending to customers.
Nice. That's a very, very good transition from where you started out to what you're actually doing right now. I like the fact that you talked about, what you studied. How did this then help you to transition into the different roles that you've been in? What kind of foundation did adult education give you?
Of course, I'll be very biased. I always say adult education is the best program any person can ever do in this world, because adult education takes you to a place of wholeness in terms of the profession. So it does marry the social sciences and the educational aspect.
Yes.
So you get through an aspect of doing psychology, sociology, adult learning principles, community development, human resource actually, and management. I did a lot, and when I did that, I fell in love with that component as well. Then we had literacy, where you learn how to teach and how to language and the other aspects, and of course the other programs that are in it. So when I took on the customer service role, at first I didn't know how to apply myself.
Okay.
But I remember having a conversation, and I'll speak about my husband. My husband told me, look, you are an adult educator. And for you, you understand the adult, the psychology that an adult comes with, and the problem. So even as they come and approach you, they're not upset with you. They're probably upset with the service that they are getting. And one of the things I've learned from for over the years is that customer is king. You need to believe as a customer service person that psychologically you need to believe that the customer is king and that the customer is always right.
Absolutely.
That is the hardest thing, because if you don't believe that the customer is right, then you begin to either judge, you also get angry, but you need to look at a customer to say, look, they're coming from a certain background. They're coming with a perspective that you don't have.
Yes.
So you need to take them as they have come. Your role is to help them see and appreciate what service you are there to give to them. And remember, the most critical aspect of service is the experience.
Exactly.
So what experience are you
giving them?
Giving to that customer? Yeah, so because of that training in adult education, it made my work a lot easier. And then, of course, transitioning to leadership also, you're dealing with people. We did group dynamics.
Yes.
People are different. You know, if a person comes and they don't feel like working, they don't feel like calls, picking the calls. You know how it is in the call center.
Yes.
It can be a bit challenging. You have so many calls, especially in inbound. Outbound, a bit different because you're out selling or you're either following up on queries. But inbound calls, how do you help support these employees? So that training that I got in adult education helped me a lot in also understanding the needs, because remember, under quality assurance, your main thrust is to coach and mentor.
Yes.
And to train, the staff. So transitioning and sitting and now saying, I've listened to your call, these are the gaps.
Yes.
You really had to be an active listener. You needed to listen to the call. What went wrong with this call? What is Francis missing in this call? And then remember, when you're going to coach someone, you don't want to tell them, Francis, you're wrong. I'm going to say, Francis, you picked the call so well. You spoke so well to the customer, but along the conversation, you missed out on your product knowledge. This is what you needed to have looked at. Even as you are listening to that, you'll be more receptive to the correction.
Right.
Unlike if I say, Francis, that was a bad call.
Yes.
Terrible call. You shouldn't have done that. You create a defense mechanism. So that training in adult education helped me on how to manage the training, develop appropriate training, trainings that were need-based according to each individual employee. Yeah.
Amazing. So now you decide to take this transition to HR. How did that happen?
Yeah, so everyone wonders actually that you have all this, because remember, even the previous apprentice job I did, the internship, and the attachments I did were more focused on customer service.
Right.
But I grew up with an HR. My mother, Alice Mbale, amazing HR practitioner, big heart. Even up to this day, I tell her that, Mom, I can't fit in your HR shoes. I can't fit into them. My mom loves people, and she always loved to help people. She'd tell us all the stories of of how she's worked with people. My dad also was a people focused. He always used to say, respect people for who they are. My mother would always say, defend people that don't have a voice. So I am coming from that background where pretty much anything to do with the human aspect was very emphasized in our home. And so we would have conversations with my mom, and she would hint to me to say, you would do very well in HR. And I would think, I don't know, you know. She would tell me, okay, you've done your degree, do a diploma, do an additional, and you know. But as I went into consultancy and we partnered with one of my first partners, Osungu. We're running Velcro Corporate Lifestyle Solution. We saw the need, because beyond the customer service training, we started having people coming to request for capacity building trainings. Okay. And that meant, obviously, I didn't have an HR, I didn't have, a practicing license. My partner had, of course. And that's when, you know, he said, you know what? I went back to mom, and she says, you know, but I've been telling you. So one of my friends actually even told me, no, you can actually do a diploma to add on your program. So that's how, of course, I went to the institute to find out. The institute has always been very gracious. They ran me through that I needed to do a CPD program for me to have that grounding in human resource. I needed to understand the employment code. I needed to understand how HR functions, because even as I was doing the training, I needed to understand what are the intricate details within the profession, you know. So I took that journey, and it was amazing. Wow. I loved it. I remember my first lecture was, I think we're using the Evelyn Horn classes, and I remember sitting there and thinking, oh my God, I made the right choice. I'm in the right place. Amazing feeling. So that's where my journey started in HR. Lovely, lovely. And within the HR space, I've also noticed that you've actually taken yourself into a niche. You are more of a specialist in learning and development. Why did you take that approach? Yeah. Oh, wow. Francis, you are really hitting me hard on these questions. Okay. So when I did the CPD program, I did all the 4 stages, by the way, to get my advanced diploma. And that's why I still advocate for it. You know that I'm an ardent advocate on people's just having that extra knowledge. Yes. I learned the first part, I remember, to do with, of course, the employment law part. And as we transitioned, I get to learn about talent management. Yes. Then I came into training and development, and oh my God, you can just imagine. It resonated. I'm like there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Yes. You know, this is it. And then, of course, I also got introduced to the balanced scorecard and performance management, and how it links to strategy. It was like music to my ears. I loved it. I said, oh my God, strategy is not hard. You know, I think from afar, when you look at the strategic plan, you're thinking, oh my God, what was the board doing and all these things. But I saw it from a different perspective. I saw it from a different angle. And that's how marrying it, of course, with my adult education, I said, you know what, I think I'll leverage my skills in, then it was training and development, or human resource development. It has transitioned also. Yeah, so that's how I decided to pick that angle of HR. Amazing. So I think I'm going to tilt this conversation right into the learning and development space, because I know it's a space that you love, and it's a practice that you've been in for some time. How would you describe this space to somebody who really doesn't know about learning and development, or wants to probably be a specialist in this area? What are some of the key items that they should be looking at when venturing in this space? What does a learning and development specialist do? Okay, so learning and development now, of course, in terms, remember, just like the way HR has transitioned from being personnel management, human resource, to now people function, people culture, human capital and development. L&D, learning and development, has also transitioned like that. So it was human resource development and training, at one point human resourcing, and then at another point it was training and development,
Yes.
and then at one point it was just training, and then now it's learning and development. So learning and development is a field of HR that looks at capacity building.
Right.
Let's say we are speaking to people that might not be very aware with HR. So HR, I'll just do a quick snap bit. So HR has the following functions. It has the operations part, which looks at the manpower planning
Yes.
and the resourcing. So that's the team that sources and looks for the talent and will recruit that talent.
Yes.
After they do the recruitment, then we have employee relations. So employee relations would take care of the employee within the organization, the custodian of the conditions of service, ensure that the organization is in check with the employment code according to any country of the employment code of that particular country, and you are within the confines of the law. And then, of course, there is a component of wellness within employee relations.
Yes.
That ensures that the environment and the well-being of employees is taken care of. Then there's learning and development.
Yes.
So learning and development is the one that manages that relationship of ensuring that this skill that you have brought, are we able to say, okay, fine, Francis has a degree, he's coming with his degree, but remember, he is doing a job that he has not done before.
Yes.
So even after the resourcing have onboarded you, L&D should make sure that you have the requisite skill to do the job. L&D should make sure that, Francis, this is the job you're doing, but because of the current trends and the change on the market, can we impart this knowledge in you so that you actually contribute towards organizational efficiency?
Right.
Then of course, so L&D sitting on two fronts, capacity building and now the performance management part.
Okay.
As we are building you, we also need to ensure, have you contracted with your supervisor? That's where the issue of the appraisal comes in.
Yes.
Have you aligned your work with the strategy of the organization? So L&D champions and says, look, the board has given us, let's say if you have a board, they come up with a strategy, mission, vision, and you have a leadership team, it's cascaded down. The function of L&D is to ensure that every member within the organization understands that strategy.
Right.
What is our mission? What is our vision? What are the objectives? And how does each function feed into that?
To another, yes.
So we are the ones that break it to a level that can be easily understood.
Right,
Especially if you're using management by objectives where you're cascading down to the team.
Yes.
You need to make sure as L&D that you help the teams understand their job roles. Remember, resourcing has given you the job title and your job roles, but L&D should help you ensure that your job title, your job role links to the strategy, links to the objectives of that, their probably business unit you're sitting.
Yes.
Yeah, so for the young professionals that are thinking, why L&D? Your job is that you need to ensure the organization is up to date with aligning themselves with skills, relevant skills. You need to ensure that you align to strategy because what is driving that organization? And remember, as you're aligning to strategy, you're understanding the mission and vision of that organization.
Absolutely.
What activities do you need to do and what initiatives do you need to develop to do that job? And in all that, you're managing the performance. And lastly, as you're managing this performance, it's feeding something which is the training needs.
Exactly.
So you see, as you are being appraised at, let's say mid-year, if you're doing an biannual review, when your supervisor appraises you at mid-year, he's going to say, okay, Francis, you've done so well here, But I feel that in terms of your talent management and how you're identifying talent, can we find other ways and means or other strategies to identify talent within the organization?
Yes.
It means your training need at that particular point, you need an expert to come and show you how do you develop strategies in identifying the right talent. Or how do you come up with strategies in succession planning?
Right.
So that's where L&D comes in. The full cycle is, yes, develop, capacity build, train the employee, but you need to manage the performance. And the results from that performance management should feed back into telling us the training that that employee needs.
Amazing, amazing. I really like how you've broken that down. You spoke with so much passion. So, you know, there are a lot of misconceptions about the L&D space, about the practice. You know, there are a lot of people who feel these are the people who just push us to do courses, to do... And some actually even feel that that is actually taking away from, you know, the actual work that they do. They feel they're just being pushed to do things that are not necessary. What are some of these misconceptions that you've heard about L&D?
Wow. You know, I'm laughing because I'm thinking, okay, so how best can I put it so that I don't look biased to anyone that's listening and just say, Tiwonge is saying that because she loves L&D. But really, L&D, I think, is always the most lean department. And at times it takes an HR director or a people function director to understand that they need that component to drive performance and productivity and efficiency in an organization. The misconceptions is that, look, we are spending too much money to train people.
Yes.
And that's why, sorry to all the COT and corporate leadership and ESCO teams, I know you will shoot me in the foot for this one, but where do we cut the budget? Can we cut the training budget? You know, it's, look, we're going through this crisis. What's the first place that you want to cut the budget? Let's look at the training budget and cut it, you know. And that's why even as for the various institutions, please, when you're hiring an L&D expert, make sure that I will advocate for this, they have a teaching background.
Right.
Because when the organization cannot send out for training and the budget has been cut, L&D staff should be people that either have a background in library information studies, adult education, of course HR itself, but any form of teaching, even
they can easily pitch in.
They can easily pitch in. They can easily say, let's develop the content, let's do the training, because you need people that can actually train in L&D. So mostly it's there's too much money being spent on this department. And that training, actually this one is actually the biggest detriment to an organization. Training is only for the newbies. You know, training, look, there's AI now.
Yes.
And imagine if we are still applying and using the old methods.
Exactly.
There's issues of different softwares within HR. We've seen that from just Excel. You have the Power BI and all these. You know, you want to see, EXCO wants to see the dashboards. How are you going to make sure you have those dashboards as you're reporting in? So the misconception that training is for the newbies. Also, people don't want to, they're agitated, they don't want to go for training because they feel they've attended 10 years, 15 years, but there should be no end to learning. The other misconception is that it takes you off your work.
Exactly.
But you see, for you to do that work well and to align with current trends, you need the tools and the skill set to do it. Yeah, so you find that the people just feel, even performance management, when you look at the aspect of performance management, people feel it's either done at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and end year. But performance management is an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
The team that works under performance management is there to offer support to the various business units and to ensure that you are tracking performance. It's one thing to contract, it's another to look at tracking.
Yes.
It's another thing to ensure that you are reviewing that performance. So even the performance management team should have the requisite skill on how to make sure that this is a rolling plan. You know, this is rolling and you are supporting the different business units. So people will feel, no, it's just once off.
Yes.
You know, and lastly is that people feel training is just something that will come and excite you instead of looking at, when I go back, what can I give back to the organization? And what can I also do? One of the things I did in the organization I worked in was trying to encourage, when people go for training, they should come back and teach others.
Yes.
You know, you should come back, teach others, have sessions where you can talk about what you learned so that you're all moving together.
I think that's very effective.
Yeah.
It's actually a very effective approach.
Yeah, it works very well.
Yeah. So, you know, there obviously, you've talked about how even within learning and development, there have been transitions over the years. I'd like for you to speak into some of the trends that you see shaping L&D. I know there are quite a few spaces that you feel, I think in future, we are going to tilt towards this direction. What are some of those trends that you've already started observing as the ones that are going to shape L&D? Okay,
so every organization should actually look into having a learning management system, LMS. Learning management system not only prepares an organization in terms of, okay, let me run through, like, let's say, when you develop a learning management system, there are two things that will happen. You're going to have the courses that you can teach in-house. You're going to have material that is updated because of current trends, and you're also going to manage your costs. When COVID happened, I think that's when I really knew about learning management systems, you know, because remember, people could not go out and be trained. So it meant you were going to do in-house training. You were still receiving some people that were newbies, and you were also, remember, the world was still moving. Things were not static. Work still had to move because you still had customers to serve. So having a well-established learning management system is one thing that can help an organization in terms of continuous learning and to ensure that your staff are braced with the current trends. Another thing that you can do is what we call opening up coaching and mentorship pods. So remember, a pod is that one, you know, a smaller unit. So you in terms of coaching, you identify within your team people that are good at what they do. Of course, you struggle to say maybe Francis is an introvert, Cynthia is an extrovert, but you need to find out who can do what and who can coach the team. So as you're doing that, that team should be able to develop material. You give them a task to if you're an insurance company, for instance, and you have noticed that you have the Gen Alpha and the Gen Z, and so you are going to ask someone from a team, go and find out what is on the, do a small market survey, work with people in marketing and PR, what are the needs of the customers, and you come back and develop training that will enhance that team. So the coaching and mentorship pods will help. Mentorship, the supervisor should begin to mentor and prepare their teams for the world of work. And of course, when we go into succession planning and all those other things, that's also another route. But the mentorship and coaching pods are also critical. And then last but not the least is that when people go for training, and I'll ask you, I don't know, do you know if people come back with the materials and share that material?
They actually don't, to be honest. They don't.
So one of the things that you want to do as an institution is that when people are sent for training, create a training manual database. Where this information that the 2 people or 3 people went for a very good training, let them come back and bring back that material and share that material with a team. Let them run through the teams that were there. A bit different from the coaching, but this is where you're now creating a database of materials. You're having the modules and materials to help you. So those are the 3 aspects that you can look at.
And like you said, when it comes to budgetary issues, those are the people you can then leverage on to say these people were trained. How can we have them deliver this training to the rest of the staff complementing? I really love that. I'm going to go a little bit deeper because I love where this conversation is going. So I'd like for you to just speak into, some of the key elements for an effective learning program? What are some of the key elements any practitioner or organization should possess?
Okay, so first things first, you cannot do any form of training, no matter what, without understanding the need for the training. In research, we'll call that a research gap. What is the gap? Why are we doing the research anyway? Why are we collecting this data anyway?
Yeah, because I've seen there actually, it's very common that organizations just do what's trending. They see that this company is taking these employees for this training. Let's also take our people.
No, then you got it wrong. You need to first understand what are your needs first. And this is where I think my corporate governance training under Institute of Directors, which I appreciate so much, has taught me on understanding what are the governance structures within your organization. And then also secondly, what is your strategy? What is your mission and vision, and why are these important? And then of course the culture, the culture, I cannot overemphasize that. You need to understand that even before you do your training needs assessment, what is the culture of learning within that organization? Remember, you have the culture on how you communicate, you have how the leadership structure goes, but you have the culture of learning. What is the culture of learning? How do people learn in that organization? Are you a telecoms company? Are you a revenue company? Are you an energy company? What strategies is ZESCO using, for instance, to do their trainings? What strategies is ZRA using? Those are public institutions. Then what strategies is MTN, Airtel, Liquid? What are they using? So you cannot bring a learning pattern from a telecoms and bring it into the energy space. Remember, first, the employees are different.
Yes.
You cannot take the training from a banking institution, from a bank, and take them to a revenue. Yes, some things might be similar, but there will be certain points of divergence.
Yes.
So you need to understand what is the learning culture of the organization. And then number two, you need to make sure that you have training that is need-based. You will be teaching people things. You teach them this, yet the organization is going this side.
Exactly.
You would have wasted resources. And there's no ESCO team or there's no board that wants to waste resources.
Absolutely not.
So you need to make sure that as you are managing your resources in terms of training and investing in that training, it should be training that will lead you towards efficiency and effectiveness in producing your results. So for me, I always say those are two critical aspects, the culture and the needs. Have you identified the needs? Have you spoken to the employees to identify? Because if Tiwonge needs communication skills training, for instance, then I have Chitwale who needs management supervisory skills to do the training. Right. I cannot force Chitwale to do communication skills training because Chitwale's at that particular point, what Chitwale needs is a supervisory skill. She's being earmarked for a position and she needs to undergo that training. Whereas Tiwonge needs to work on how she's communicating with the customers because she's attending to customers and we've noticed that she's having these lapses. So the need for the training, I tell you, that is the beginning. Without that, no matter how good the environment, we talk about the environment, the material, material development is not a very big issue in this time of AI and the like, because we can always, we can always figure it out, and even a person that doesn't know. But are you developing training that is need-based? Have you understood the culture of learning in that organization? Do they need online training? Do they need one-on-one, hands-on training? If you're talking about engineers, you can't deal with theories. You need to take them to the machine. You need to show them the machine. This is how it's fixed. If you're talking to someone in customer service, you might not need that machine because it's a social skill. Right. But the hard skill might need you to do things that will be required for a hard skill. Absolutely. So for me, those are the two aspects that I hinge on.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And it's a good transition to the next question I have, because you touched on, online training versus in-person training. So my question is actually, how do you balance these two? I know there are a lot of organizations that are very big on online training. It could be a cost issue. Others don't even want to hear in-person training because they know you're going to have to pay a vendor or stuff like that. So how do you balance these two?
Francis, for you and me, we always say the H in the HR should never, ever be replaced. And that's my advice to the different CEOs listening to this, to different directors, to the different corporate teams. The HR in the HR itself, the human aspect, is one thing that I think even AI will never take away from.
Right.
And that's why social in-person interactions are critical. So the two forms of training you have, of course, we talked about a learning management system.
Right.
In times where you know that as an organization you are shaken, you can definitely depend on that. And also there are certain trainings, depending on your needs assessment, you say, okay, fine, this is just something, maybe a 45 minutes training, a wake-up call for people to just rejuvenate it, you can have it. But the in-person training, I'm not saying we need to do away with those. Remember, in-person, what does it do? We are going back to employee relations and the issue of wellness.
Exactly.
One of my friends, brilliant HR practitioner, Tamara is big on wellness. And she always says, live your best life. And the way that you can live your best life is through social interactions as well.
Right.
So you need to ensure that your employees meet with one another. Apart from living your best life in terms of interaction, is remember we are building a team. The team still has to operate as a team.
Yes.
And one of the things of team building and team management are social interactions. So even when you have a trainer training you in something, we always say adult learning training should be fun.
Yes.
And this is why we incorporate different ice-breaking aspects, and
just to break
that monotony, shake off the positions. You shake off the positions and you're able to just be yourselves, because that whole aspect helps you as a team to learn together. So we cannot do away with the one-on-one interactions. We can minimize because of cost savings and of course we're doing, so you have CFO. CFO is giving you to say, this is where we are sitting, Director of Finance is on your neck. But you need to make sure that you balance the online trainings and the physical exercises. Because remember, sometimes, I remember even when COVID struck, remember the issue of people doing other things.
Yes.
And no, I'm here, we are cooking, I'm here. I remember one time I'm literally taking care of the babies and I'm in a meeting. And then when they're almost crying and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? The baby is crying and they're telling me, okay, can you unmute? I'm thinking, oh my God. Yeah, so you might find that sometimes the online sessions might not be very productive. You need someone who's very good actually to manage the online trainings and to captivate that audience. But let's not do away with the in-person. Let's have a budget. Please, EXCO members, I plead with you.
Right. No, that balance is absolutely important. And I definitely do agree. You cannot run away from in-person kind of trainings. So, brings me to another question, which is quite controversial as well, because obviously, you know, the people who are breathing down your neck talking about how much money you're spending in training your staff, how do you then track or measure the success of training development initiatives?
Okay, so one critical aspect of measuring a training that people have undergone, let's say an organization does a rollout on customer service training, or does a rollout on performance management to see if people have understood, is feedback. Okay. So you need to create a feedback tool to check in. And also, when you do a training, don't leave the business units or the departments in isolation as a trainer. You need to check in with them. Remember, departments have monthly meetings. They have their monthly check-in meetings. They have their monthly reports. You need, and this is why, remember I was saying that the thing is that people feel L&D is like static.
Yes.
But you need an L&D team that will develop tools to go and track how have these people come back? Remember, we talked about having that database, the banking of that information that you are using. That information, has it been shared with the others? Is there any change that has taken place from what it was to what is?
Okay, so how do you measure that same change?
So how you measure that is that, one, through, you need to track your performance. So let's say in March, this is how we were operating as a department. Let's say you are a call center, for instance. So you were picking, remember, 3 minutes, you need to pick your call before the 3 minutes. So you're looking at how many calls that were picked, you're looking at your dropped calls, you're looking at the time that was spent on the call in terms of product knowledge. So if you do a product knowledge training, for instance, you are expecting that as quality assurance, when you listen to that call, there should be a certain paradigm shift in terms of how you, when you monitor, you say, aha, now Francis has got it. You know, so the reports speak to us as well. You look at a report that was done in January and look at a report that was done in February. So as L&D, you probably have a small form to say, has there been any change in attitude, behavior, and performance? Because it's not just performance that you want. When people go for training, you're expecting a certain behavior pattern to have been adopted. You're expecting a certain attitude. And of course, why you are there in that company is to perform. So how are you able to see a change? So the supervisors are very key in this process. Someone says, we don't want you to do, we had a client, I remember, in one of our consultancy, and they said, we don't want to spend so much money and do this training, and after 2-3 months it dies down. How do we maintain that? It's by you as L&D picking it up and ensuring that you keep in check those departments. So the tool that you have are your feedback tools. So you can have an online form, because now remember, you don't want to send a form people should start writing. So you create that Google form, or depending on how your system looks like, a feedback form. You send it to the departments, let them send that information back, and then you record. Remember, we are now in an era of data-driven decision making. So you as L&D is also collecting your data. You're doing your data analytics. You're doing your trend analysis. By the end of the year, you should be able to say, in Q1, this was production level. Of course, those that have products that are physical products, they'll even say, we're producing so much in terms of maybe cement or in terms of juice or whatever, but now we've had to shoot the cooking oil that we're producing. What has changed? So you should be able to see this translate to numbers, change in behavior, and improve performance.
I love that. Absolutely spot on. And I like how you've touched on data analytics, because this is something that we have it now, we can't run away from it, and it actually helps us to make informed decisions. How would you rate the maturity of data analytics in the L&D space?
We work with data. In L&D, you work with data, and that's why you, as an L&D person or a person that works in L&D, you need to be abreast with current trends. Actually, within the HR space, if there's one aspect that has to really look out for the trends, apart from, of course, employee relations in terms of the employment code, in terms of any laws, remember past judgments, is L&D. You need to see what is driving issues of efficiency and effectiveness. You as resourcing, you are bringing us the Gen Zs, right? You are bringing us the Gen Alpha now. You know, we have now the Gen Alpha, which I learned yesterday. You are bringing us this crop of individuals where if their performance is not well managed, they'll just tell you, I'm leaving.
Just like
they'll just tell you, Francis, I think this organization is not meeting up to my standards, and I think I should leave. So what information do we have, and what have we kept to ensure that we manage this new era? And that's why for L&D we are into a lot of research. That's why a long time it was human resource. Some had even research, training and development. Why the research is because you needed to look at what has changed on the job market. Who are the employees of today? What are their needs? And how can we advise EXCO in terms of how we are managing our staff? Why is these people, why should we take a longer period for onboarding for these?
Yes.
You see, because your onboarding process, you cannot do onboarding for 1 week in this time and age. No. What is your data telling you? Is the attrition rate high for that organization? Why is the attrition rate high? So whoever you're bringing in, you know that there's a potential of attrition rate and them leaving.
Yes.
So how are you going to manage? And this is why L&D works with data. Remember, even when you do your exit interview, you need to feed into L&D.
Exactly.
When a person has left, has mutually separated, what did they say? What was the information that they gave? When you do your performance management, what are the silent complaints of a 360? Let's say, for instance, you do a 360 appraisal where you have the employees also giving feedback on their supervisors. Have you kept that data to help you in how to do your supervisory and management trainings? So really, I think from my perspective is that L&D cannot function without having that data.
Nice, nice, amazing. So you speak with all this passion, and you speak with, you know, this idea that everything is well put together, like you don't have any challenges within the space, which I know you definitely do. So this question is basically now addressing some of these key challenges that you face as L&D professionals today, and what can be done to overcome some of these challenges.
I think, like I said, that the misconception is where you cut the budget. Like the first thing you want to do is just cut the training budget. I really speak into that most often when I'm given a platform to share that before you think of cutting the training budget, think through as EXCO, as a leadership team, as to where do we see ourselves as an organization. So the biggest challenge is availability of resources, because certain skills that when of course resourcing does the job analysis for us, they'll do the skills analysis, they'll tell us, okay, L&D, this is the skills analysis. We're going to get these people, or we don't have these people, but we have these people. We need to train them to bring them up to speed to have this skill. So our biggest headache is, do we have the money on the budget?
Right.
We have issues of climate change now, and that has caused a paradigm shift in a lot of organizations. We had the drought that we had. There are certain skills that certain organizations or within certain parameters that they needed to help them manage that crisis. And that was definitely going to take a certain form of training.
Right.
Did people have the money to do that training? Was there money in operations that can be diverted to training so that you have the right skill and the people are trained and come and give back to the organization? So the biggest challenge mostly is that money to train people and the need for you to ensure you have that. Secondly is that we do have people even within HR fraternity who don't have interest at all in L&D.
Yes.
And my plight even on this forum is that let's be interested. Don't just think these people have nothing to do. Go and learn. Go and try to understand what help do they need?
Yes.
You know, how can you support learning and development? What can you bring to the table? Actually, for me, I always say an organization should have certified trainer of trainers through L&D, such that on a rainy day, you should fall back. You should have a fallback plan. You know, in every department, you should have a trainer, at least one or two, so that even when there's a need, you can easily call on those people to come and help. So issues of funding, issues of even other HR practitioners taking interest. And then thirdly, people should also take the interest to want to learn about other business functions.
Right.
Remember, we always say HR is a business strategic partner.
Yes.
Because why that is key is that as HR, it's not just managing the resource. You should, as an HR person, be interested to know what is everybody doing?
Yes.
L&D is actually one of the departments that actually knows what everyone in the organization does because of the component of performance management. So they understand the objectives they're tracking, they understand the initiatives, even as they're setting their targets and goals. But we need the other HR functions to come in, especially if you have a large organization that is specialized. You need other functions to be interested to come and say, hey, L&D, what are you looking at? How is the organization functioning? Yes, we employed and we brought these people, but what are people doing on the ground? I always say biasly that HR L&D is ground.
I love that. I love that. So Tiwonge, you touched on a question that I'm just about to ask, and this is, how these budgetary constraints can never just be overlooked. Like, it's something that is always coming on the fore. Like, the reason why we can't implement, some of these initiatives you're putting in place is because of budget. It's something that's constantly coming up. But I'd like for you to address small businesses or startups, because for those kind of companies, budgetary issues are actually real. They're very, very real. How can you then adopt effective training programs on a very tight budget for such kind of setups? I know you talked about the aspect of having dedicated trainer of trainers within teams. That is one approach that you can take. Any other initiatives you can speak on?
So what you can also do is develop, let's say an SME has, because I've done trainings for SMEs in my private consultancy, and sometimes the first question an SME will actually ask you, can we afford you for training? And remember, the ultimate is that we are here to help one another.
Yes.
And you sit with a team and you tell them, okay, what is the challenge that you're having? The most important thing is to identify the challenge that you're having, and because you want to grow your business, can you invest in 1 or 2 people? So let's say you have a staff of 10.
Yes.
Out of the 10, can you dedicate an amount for 2 people to be trained, and make sure that they're trained so well and come and train the others? But beyond that is also the innovation of tap into your team. What skills beyond the job? And this is where talent comes in.
Right.
In terms of talent management, it's not just the talent you have acquired because this person works under risk and they can do this. Is that person also, have they done law? Have they done audit? What has that person done that can make them stand out to help that organization to grow? So sometimes when people are employed, we just look at what are the hard skills, and sometimes we forget the soft skills. So you might find that a person has a hard skill and they are, let's say, an insurance broker, for instance. What soft skills? Remember, on the CV, there's always the aspect of what are your interests or hobbies. So tap into that as well. You might find that the person who's a stockbroker can actually even do sales and marketing.
Absolutely.
They've worked maybe in a call center. Remember the reason, like in Zambia, we look at the CV and we always want a detailed CV. Very rare do we do resumes because they're very brief. But the reason why we have detailed CVs is because we want to understand what type of a person is Francis. What does he come with apart from being a stockbroker? So the only thing is that sometimes an SME, because they don't have an HR practitioner, probably they just have maybe even just one HRO who is doing, remember, the employee relations, recruitment, L&D. They are that one, maybe 3-in-1 function. But we need to look out for some of these things, and this is why I say, when you start up a business, at least spare money for a consultant to come and just say, get an HR consultant to say, let's run through. Do we have a strategy in place? Do we have a mission? Do we have a vision? Do we have a performance plan? How am I going to monitor performance? I don't have a performance management system, but how will I track their performance? So innovation is another way, apart from doing a train of trainers, is where you tap into the talent of your employees and see what they can do besides just what they were employed for.
Amazing. I really love that approach. All right, so Tiwonge, as we are winding down the conversation, I'd like for you to just speak into, what kind of, advice you'd give to somebody who's looking to start out in the learning and development space.
So even as one starts out and is looking at saying, okay, I have been in operations, I have been doing employee relations, I want to work under L&D, for instance. What do I need? So first things first is that transitioning is gradual. Just like change is gradual. So if one is transitioning from one job role to L&D, they need to be patient with themselves.
Okay.
First things first. You need to first understand, is this what I want to do? How is the process looking like? What do you need to prepare? The second stage is preparation. So I'll speak from two fronts. I'm looking at a person who's transitioning, then I'll speak about a newbie.
Sure.
So a person that's transitioning is that one, first they need to have that appreciation and understand. Number two, they need to, do they have the requisite skill that it takes? One of the critical aspects in learning and development is designing and doing plans, learning plans,
okay.
Presentations. So do they are they well abreast with teaching methodology, training methodologies? Are they a trainer of trainer? So they might want to also invest in their own capacity building,
okay.
in terms of exposing themselves to understanding how different employees learn. Thirdly, they need to look at the tools in L&D. Okay. So tools in L&D is the learning management system, a talent hub, the performance management system itself. So they need to interact with those systems because remember we said L&D has two functions: the training component and the performance management component.
Yes.
Of course, at a given time, sometimes you might not do two things at once. But if your organization is smaller, it will be required of you to do both functions.
Right.
So you need to understand aspects of performance management. Understand depending on the strategy and how. It was formulated using the balance scorecard. How do you link into strategy? You are the custodian, basically, of ensuring that that strategy comes to life, and ensuring that it's not just a beautiful document, but you make sure that the mission and vision is achieved. And how do you do that? You support the employees.
Right.
So you need to understand the strategic aspect, issues of governance within the organization, so that you're just well abreast. Thirdly is that you should be a strategic business partner.
Okay.
And that is taking interest in knowing all the departments in the organizations. If there are different business units, or if you use business units or departments, whichever, you need to understand what their role is, what they do, what are some of their challenges. So you might want to use what we say visible felt leadership.
Okay.
Visible felt leadership is a concept where you do management by walking. You do walk-ins. So maybe a Friday, you do a walk-in to a department. You go and understand what are some of their challenges, what are some of their training needs. So you do the informal conversations before you do your formal to collect the data.
Right.
Yeah, so you also need to just be a very good strategic partner. Then you have now the newbies. So here's a newbie who's just graduated. They're coming from campus. They've done a diploma in HR, or they've done a degree in human resource, business administration, BALIS, but they want to work under L&D.
Right.
They need to allow themselves to learn from the experts in that field on how to manage employee capacity building. Because remember, they've learned a lot more on the theoretical part, but now they need to come and learn how do you build this employee that you've already employed. They have the qualification, and they want to do their work well. They need to understand parameters of efficiency and effectiveness and how it helps organizations to do their work. They need to understand issues of skills analysis, job evaluations. Those are critical things that will also speak to you as you are planning for training. And then also, they need to be people that are open the goodness, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they already have technology on their fingertips and all these things. So now they need to apply that to say the systems are found. There's a learning management system, there's a talent management system, there's a performance management system. How can they also now feed in, and what contribution can they bring on the table to help enhance that? So on both fronts, you are managing an employee who is working already, who has come with a certain skill set. Some of them, remember, they want to go and do their masters, so you facilitate that process. They want to go and do their PhDs. Others are craftsmen. They want to do their bachelor's engineering degrees. You need to do one thing that is critical for both functions. You need to have policies. I should not forget to say that.
Right.
I think at some point I must have forgotten. Policies are critical. L&D should have a training policy, should have a performance management policy. You need those two policies to go hand in hand on how you manage the capacity building for the employee and how you manage the performance for the employee. So they need to be part of that process to ensure that they effectively work within L&D and they contribute to the bigger picture.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. One last question, Tiwonge. If you would change one thing about corporate learning today, what would it be?
Wow, if I could change one thing about corporate learning, I think is to help operatives, people sitting at different management levels, that let's all not forget that even after we have employed a skilled labor force, we need to help them manage their skills proficiency. We need to help them manage their learning. We need to make their learning enjoyable. We want them, in as much as we want them to produce the results we want, we need to be there to support them. And let's not cut the budget so much on training.
That you've overemphasized.
That one I always say. At least let's do a certain percentage and leave some. Yes, because in-person trainings are still important. In as much as we're going to drive the AI agenda, learning management systems, we still need the H in the HR. One of my mentors once always says the H in the HR needs to be there. You know, she always emphasizes that we need the human aspect in the HR to be there. It needs to be visible, it needs to be felt, so that as teams we can ensure that the mission and the vision of that organization are attained.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tiwonge, it has been a pleasure having you. This has been a very, very insightful discussion. You've broken down training, learning and development to the granular level. And I know a lot of viewers and listeners have drawn quite a lot from this conversation. So thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you for having me, Francis, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So this has been another exciting episode of the Talent Plug podcast. Today we had a very special guest, Tiwonge Mbale Zyambo. She is an expert in the HR space, an expert in the customer service space, and she really broke down learning and development the way I've never heard it broken down before. So really, really amazed by this conversation that we have had. So for all of you who are joining us, rejoining us, joining us for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe to the Talent Plug podcast, leave us a review, and share the episodes with somebody who would learn something from you. So until the next time we meet, stay inspired.